Okay, on our disease series today, we're going to talk about malaria. Malaria, the name means bad air. This comes from a medieval idea that the disease was actually spread by the swamp air because people realized that they were getting it near swamps. Right now, we know that it's actually spread by mosquitoes, but specifically, the pathology is caused by a single cell parasite called a plasmodium, usually Plasmodium falciparum. It's the last time I'm going to use that name. So it gestates inside the gut of the mosquito for a good portion of its life cycle, and then when it's ready, when it matures, it hitches a ride on the saliva of the mosquito when the mosquito bites a person. It gets into the bloodstream. Most of the single-celled organisms are killed by our immune system, but just a handful can get into the liver. That's enough to cause a serious problem. So essentially what happens is once they sneak past the immune system and get into the liver cells, they hide out and they multiply. They go from a few dozen to several thousand each. And once they're ready, they slip back out of the liver cells and into the bloodstream, and this is where things get bad. So essentially what they do is they attack the red blood cells, and they burrow inside and they eat everything inside of the red blood cells, all of the amino acids and proteins. And it takes about 48 hours. And then once they do that, they bust back out into the bloodstream by killing the red blood cell. So this is actually what causes the cyclical cycle. About every 48 hours, you'll get fever spikes with malaria, and it causes shock to your system. So you'll experience vomiting, diarrhea. Essentially, your body recognizes that there's a poison, there's a toxin, and they're trying to get rid of it, but you can't because it's in the blood. And about 30 seconds later, these little single cell parasites will burrow into another red blood cell and they'll continue the cycle. So the really dangerous thing is when it sequesters a red blood cell. So in other words, they secrete a protein that makes the red blood cells a little stickier, so they'll stick to the side of a blood vessel. If this happens in the brain or in the placenta, this causes severe anemia in those body areas, which is already a problem because they're killing red blood cells, which is what carries your oxygen, right? And if it happens in the placenta, it could kill the child, and if it happens in the brain, it creates cerebral malaria, which is fatal. So the best thing that can be done is getting malarial treatments as soon as possible. If it isn't severe yet, if the anemia isn't severe, oral medication will do just fine. But if it is severe, the intravenous medication does exist. Okay, so let's talk about risk real quick. About 4 billion people are still at risk of malaria. That's shrunk. The region where these mosquitoes that carry it has shrunk significantly, and there are now only about 20 to 40 species of mosquitoes left that can still carry the protus that causes malaria. That's good news, but the bad news is that the tactics that have worked in the past have been mostly accidental. It's like urbanization and those types of things, and will not really work super well in the future. So most of the mosquitoes that cause fatal malaria, or actually all of them, about 95% of cases that are fatal are caused by the Plasmodium falciparum, and that is predominantly in sub-Saharan Africa. That doesn't mean that non-fatal cases are not severe. They can still cause severe illness. Okay, as far as prevention goes, the best thing that you could be doing if you're traveling in a region where malaria is still really prevalent is to take the vaccine. So it came out in 2020, and other vaccines are in the pipeline. But it should be noted that this isn't something that has 100% effectiveness. In fact, it has closer to 30-40% effectiveness. So it is part of the treatment plan or the prevention plan. Other things that are important are insecticide-treated nets at night. Most of these mosquitoes are nocturnal, so that's a big part of it, as well as keeping watch on your health and, if need be, taking oral medications if malaria is contracted. Now, the final point is, how do we get rid of this disease? How do we remove it from the human population? And the unfortunate answer is we don't have anything that we can do right now. This is largely a disease of the impoverished. So distribution of these nets that is really important to the prevention, or even the vaccines, which is, again, a part of, but not the entirety of the prevention, is very difficult. And so is the oral medication or getting somebody to a hospital if they need intravenous medication. That because it's in a region that is incredibly impoverished in sub-Saharan Africa, most people that are at risk aren't going to have the resources to be able to treat or prevent. So there are a lot of things that are being done. One of the things that I'm really excited about as a biotechnologist is using gene drive technology to try to either limit the spread of these specific Mosquitoes, like I said, there are about 20 to 40 species, all in the same genus of mosquitoes that actually spread Plasmodium falciparum. So if we could take out 40 species of mosquitoes out of, you know, several 100,000 species, overall, we wouldn't affect the ecosystem too much, but we could also save, like I said, 500,000 lives every year. I know a lot of people are really uncomfortable with using gene drive technology. It'll probably be another decade before we get to the point where we could viably use it, and that's just dealing with the ethics, right? The idea of wiping out an entire species on purpose sounds a little uncomfortable for a lot of people. There are other ways it could be used, though. It could be used to genetically alter the mosquito so that it can't carry the Plasmodium falciparum. So that would be a way that the species carries on, but it's not if it can't pass it to us. If the Plasmodium falciparum can't grow in the mosquito and then pass it to us, then we've effectively eliminated the parasite, right? And so there are several other things that are in the works, but I'm really confident that technology will be something that we can use positively to help us avoid this disease. Other methods that we've used, again, like the nets or medications and stuff, distributing those in sub-Saharan Africa, we've saved at this point, our society has saved over 10 million lives just this century from this disease, and we've still got a long way to go, and we're hoping to, this is one of those diseases that, if we're lucky, if we work hard, might go the way of smallpox, and that's the goal, right? Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to my video on malaria. If there's anything that I didn't cover that you think I should have, please let me know. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves.